welcome XYZ. We're here for a super exciting conversation, so I hope you're as excited as I am. We're going to discuss the new Web3 paradigm of decentralized identity, governance, and community collaboration. I'm Blake Lezenski. I'm the head of corporate innovation at Outlier Ventures, and I bring you here one of the brightest minds in the space on that very topic. I'm going to maybe quickly just announce them, and then I would like to ask them for a quick intro. So we have Paul Brody, global blockchain leader at EY and the chairman of Enterprise Alliance. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you.
We have Sofiane Delloue, system engineer at Newfoundation.
Nice to be here.
And of course, last but not least, just sitting the closest to me, David Galindo, co-founder and CTO at Valory.
Hello, everyone.
All right, so why we're here today? We are here to explore the transformative potential of decentralized identity, governance, and community collaboration in the Web3 era. Digital decentralized identity is a transformative approach to digital identity management that empowers individuals to control their personal information without relying on centralized authorities of institutions. So, Paul, EY has been involved in enterprise blockchain solutions for years. I have a bit of an obsession about enterprise blockchain solutions, so I've been following. How do you see decentralized identity evolving in the corporate sector? And what do you think are the biggest hurdles for enterprises adopting decentralized identity standards?
So, interestingly, when people talk about decentralized identity as a problem to solve, I think that about it from an individual perspective. Because over in the world of enterprise, we actually have decentralized enterprise identity, and it's widely used. It's called SSL certificates, right? So every enterprise that has a website has an SSL certificate. And we actually, so at EY, we have built a layer 2 network for Ethereum called Nightfall. It's a privacy network. One of the things that we wanted to do was to make it unattractive for bad actors. So when we talk about privacy, we don't mean enabling anonymous money transfer. You have to identify yourself to use a network. But then the question becomes, okay, so who's going to do the identifying? And what we settled on was something called it's a variant of an SSL certificate, which I won't get into the technical details of, but they are issued by, these are enterprise identity certificates that are issued by the same certificate authorities that do SSLs. And the reason this is really attractive and desirable is because, first of all, every company that has a website already has an SSL certificate. They already have a relationship with a certificate authority. Certificate standards are open source public standards, which means that there's no gatekeeping, there's no controlling who gets one of these certificates. If you meet the requirements, then you get one of the certificates. And so over on the enterprise side, we think actually that this is a much more well-solved problem than people realize compared to we're individuals. Because most individuals don't have an SSL certificate, but enterprises basically all do.
That's a great point, and it kind of strikes to the concept of self-sovereignty, right? Like, why can't I authenticate myself in a way as an individual?
Right, and I want to be very clear. I don't really believe in the idea of self-sovereign identity. It's great. You can run around saying, I am Batman. You are not. You are who the government says you are. That is the reality of kind of doing business today if you are regulatory compliant, which means that I think at least some of the discussion of self-sovereign identity is a little bit detached from the legal and regulatory reality.
That's a great point. And on the topic of Batman, Sofiane, your work at Newfoundation involves peer-to-peer weighted reinforcement learning for agent coordination. Again, huge fan of AI agents. How can persistent identifiers help increase trust in decentralized AI networks?
Yeah, so basically with AI, the difference when we talk about consensus between AI is that you cannot just anonymously come to a network and run a node and just perform computations. Because it's probabilistic, and so in a probabilistic world, you have to be judged based on how well you perform your predictions. So for example, as a VC, you will raise your next fund because you have a good track record of giving good return to your investors. In academia, you get to peer review other researchers by having a track record of having a PhD or having been good at what you do. And so here the idea is to use the standards, as Paul mentioned, like the open standards, the DID, cryptographic signatures, and so on, to allow agents to earn a reputation as someone who's good at making predictions. Because once you can do that, you open the floodgates to open permissionless innovation. So instead of having like someone sitting at the top of the HR at OpenAI saying, you are a good data scientist, you are a bad data scientist, you can let the good data scientists emerge in an open permissionless system. And so in order to do that, you need to have those identifiers. And so we believe at Newfoundation, and the new coin is built on the decentralized identifiers and this kind of like persistent identities. And also the cryptographic signatures. We use the verifiable credential as a standard. So every data event, we are repurposing basically the verifiable credential.
The more agents, the merrier, as 2025 saying goes. And I really like the point you made, especially for VCs, not thinking in certainties, thinking in probabilities. As a VC myself, thinking in certainties can be very dangerous. However, I am very certain that David has a great answer to the next question. So, David, what are the biggest cryptographic challenges in securing decentralized identity solutions? And how can multi-agent AI models enhance privacy and security?
From a cryptographic perspective, if we consider the building blocks that a decentralized identity system needs, definitely from the theory side of things, I would say there is already a lot of research and building blocks available. And also from then, if we look at the practical side of things, I think there are also enough building blocks already available that have been proven to work at least at an isolated level and a proof of concept level. So from the cryptography side, I don't see much more that needs to be done. And then if we consider the crypto world, we also now have proven that we can build zero knowledge tools at a scale. And zero knowledge allows us to build identity systems in a secure yet private way. So maybe someone who is working in the trenches of building decentralized identity systems may think differently. This is not my case now. I'm not building this at the moment. But I would say cryptography has already given everything we need. And then the challenge really is in having a system that can be, with a use case that can be used massively. And then I don't think we have seen that yet. And I think part of it is the difficulty of having access to a massive distribution channel with many users, because normally who has access to that are the big incumbents, say the Google or the Microsofts of the world. And then what is their really interest from a business perspective in having a decentralized identity solution? I don't know what the answer to that is. And then, well, you could go to the smaller, say, startups, and then there the challenge is, right, I built a system, and now how do I make it interoperable so that other startups that are working on my same field, because the big incumbents right now, maybe they are not interested, then how to make it work for everyone, and how do you have a business model that you can make money out of it.
Zero knowledge, practicality, interoperability as the keys to a wider adoption. I love that. And brings me neatly to the next kind of part of our discussion, governance. So in Web3, decentralized decision-making process that we call governance is often implemented through decentralized autonomous organizations, DAOs, but it comes with its own host of problems and challenges. So David, to keep you in the hot seat for a little longer, keeping the AI-focused, driven multi-agent system, how can a decentralized autonomous agent improve decision-making and scalability in governance models?
So one of the main challenges in governance for decentralized organizations, DAOs, is voter apathy. Be it because there are many proposals to vote on, be it because the proposals are technical, be it because most of them are not really important for the entities that can participate in the governance. There is very low participation. So one experiment that we ran at Valory inside the OLAS DAO was to create a multi-agent system called Governator, where you as a token holder who can participate and vote in a proposal for the OLAS DAO or other DAOs, you can delegate your voting power to a multi-agent system that once you give this multi-agent system your preference to vote, so what is your interest to be promoted inside the DAO, then there is a set of AI agents using AI tools that for each vote are going to try to reach consensus on what should be your vote. If they reach consensus on what that vote should be, then they will vote on your behalf. So this is just an experiment, but it has been used in practice by several DAOs, and it's still is in use for the OLAS DAO. And it's part of a bigger picture that this is how we see it at our Valory, that autonomous agents should provide outcomes for their owners, and that you should give them a goal, and then this goal should be achieved more or less autonomously, ideally with very little input from yourself.
So you hear this here first. Delegating decision to agents means no more dead DAOs. Amazing. Paul, as a self-declared Enterprise Ethereum Alliance fanboy, I have to ask, you guys play a major role in governance frameworks for blockchain adoption. How do you balance the need for decentralized governance with enterprise-level compliance and regulatory requirements?
So we're probably, the EEA is much more enterprise focused. So relatively speaking, we are going to be focused much more on the centralized part of the discussion, which is at the interface with governments and regulators, what are we really allowed to do? And I want to give you a very, very specific illustration. Stablecoin adoption is something that's happening all around the world. Millions of people have their digital wallets. They are sending and receiving US dollars all over the world. And almost all of them are actually doing it in countries where what they're doing isn't allowed. And these countries, they want US dollars, they want stable coins because they live in a country without a stable currency, without good governance, and they want access to this currency. The issue for them is, as individuals, it's not worth the government's effort to try to hunt them down. But let me tell you, a large company, right, the government does have the money, the time, and the effort to go after a large corporate enterprise and punish them for violating currency laws and things like that. So the reality is that what enterprises are allowed to do is much more limited. We have to be very, very focused on regulatory compliance inside that process. However, what is good, and one of the things that I see that we're trying to do with the EEA and that I see in the Ethereum Foundation is we are replicating and copying standards from an organization that I think is a real benchmark for true high-performance decentralized governance, which is the Internet Engineering Task Force. The IETF runs the internet. They do everything that's required to keep the internet running in a genuine decentralized manner. The task force is technically focused. It's not political. It's run by the member participants and companies. And engagement and participation and merit are what drive the task force forward. And we want to see the same kind of thing. You are welcome to participate in these kinds of activities, whether you're an individual or an enterprise. It's about the quality of your ideas and your commitment to making the system work in a regulatory compliant way, rather than your identity as a particularly large enterprise.
Amazing. So this season, enterprise tokens that are compliance and regulation first are in. Enterprise meme coins, no. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, somehow my proposal to launch Brody coin wasn't accepted.
What? And I hold such a big, part of it. All right, Sofiane, human decision-making in DAOs is often inefficient, as we kind of established. How do you see AI augmenting or even replacing traditional governance mechanisms in decentralized communities and beyond?
So let's talk about the extreme version of that. When you scrape the entire knowledge of the internet and you compress that into an LLM, what you're actually compressing is the willingness or the energy of all those humans. So all your wishes, all your conversations, all your decisions, all of that is being compressed. And so when I tap into that LLM, it will reply to me with the kind of averaging of all the opinions of everyone. So that's a quite interesting way to think about a DAO, because a DAO, it takes you to like actually go and look at every proposal and then vote on every proposal and think about every proposal. What if instead you could pour in all your desires, all your wishes, all your values, all your principles, all the things that you care about, and then have this kind of like tension between all the other agents that do the same, and then you would end up kind of having your surrogate that would represent you in that debate. And so then the question is like, how do we make this in a trustworthy way? How do we know that it's actually you? And that's where I think we have to go back to some form of identity proxy. So in the case of Newcoin, we use this numerical identity proxy that we call the watts. So the watts is not the watts of energy that you consume when you run AI. It's more the energetic value of all the cognition and all the creativity and all the effort that goes into producing that conversation. And so far, as humans, we still have superiority there. So it means we are able to compute much cheaper, much faster, much smarter, all those things. And so that's how we kind of represent humans. So we don't represent humans by trying to know like what's your name or your iris or things like that, but it's more if you're able to put that level of cognition into your interaction with that ecosystem, you are likely a human, and therefore your voice matters.
On the risk of sounding lazy, I cannot wait to pour my hopes, dreams, and ideas into an AI agent and be like, just create a proposal. So I'm very excited for that.
That's what everyone here should be thinking about. Like in the next 5-10 years, it doesn't matter how long it takes, there will be a point where the only thing we are useful for is making wishes, writing what we want.
Amazing. So we're moving on to the third wish of our discussion, community. Collaboration is fundamental to the success of any Web3 project, and building an inclusive and engaged community fosters innovation and accelerates adoption. So, Sofiane, I'm going to keep you in the hot seat. With Newcoin, you focus on the intersection of AI and creative economies. How can AI-powered governance structures create fairer participation dynamics in Web3 communities?
Yeah, so the key word here, in my opinion, is discovery and upwards mobility. So today in this world, we have cards that have been distributed in a certain way based on the mechanisms we have to discover talent. So we have academia as a way to distribute like that person is skilled, that person is not skilled. Then we have track record, we have your experience at work, and so on. And so the resources are going to people that have been identified as talented or as competent based on the current infrastructure we have to make that discovery. Social media is very dynamic, but it encourages more like attention-seeking behaviors. It's not really about the quality of what you do. Academia is very qualitative, but it's very slow, it's very institutional, and so on. So what I see here as the opportunity is taking the power of blockchain to bring trust and bringing the scalability of AI and algorithms to really accelerate that discovery of talent, of competence, to bring the right people. Like the goal is not like, I personally, my personal opinion, I don't believe in UBI, but I do believe in getting much faster at identifying high economy and allocating the resource to them so that everyone can benefit from that. And that's where I think AI can be an amazing tool.
AI is not here to replace talent and competence, it's here to extrapolate it. And I think that's important to remember. David, trust and reputation are critical in decentralized collaboration. What role does applied cryptography play in ensuring fair participation and preventing malicious behavior in Web3 communities?
So, in order to, so we're in a digital world, then in order to allow someone to participate, some entity to participate in the decision making, we need to do two things. First, identify them, and secondly, once they are identified, assign them participatory rights, because not everyone has the same participation rights. So once that is done, and this can be established, then you need to do this in a tamper-proof way. And this is where you need to use cryptography, because essentially the only way that we can do things digitally that are tamper-proof, it boils down to cryptography. But cryptography doesn't solve everything. So then the gap between what can be done in a tamper-proof way and the functionalities that you need to provide in this participation system in order to achieve the functionalities that are needed, I think multi-agent systems will do a very good job there, essentially because we are seeing now how when you have a system where agents that are specialized in different functions, when they work together, the accuracy of the results of their inferences are much better than you have a monolithic AI model, whether it is agentic or not. So especially, for instance, for identifying fraud, I think this is going to be a year and the next few years where these multi-agent systems are going to be pretty powerful. And actually, there is a company called Sardine working in this space, who just raised their Series C on the promise of building these AI agents for identifying fraud. And then if you think of multi-agent systems in crypto, like the ones that we are building at Valory, then their agency is also made even more powerful by combining them with a wallet so that they can take action. And I think this is a promising avenue for this problem.
I love the idea of a cryptography-enabled AI agent hive. So to any quantum computing people in the audience, there is no need to be mean. All right, moving on to the last question, and then maybe if there's any, okay, so moving on to the last question. Paul, enterprise engagement with Ethereum has grown significantly. How can corporate players contribute to open source ethos of Web3 while ensuring security, privacy, and interoperability for their business needs?
So the answer is actually very simple. You can do what EY did. You can donate your code into the public domain. You can build for public Ethereum, right? And you can build in such a way that there really isn't, you have to understand that when you are contributing to the ecosystem, it has to be to a large degree an unselfish contribution. That means no funny business with the license agreements, right? You know, EY software that we put into the Ethereum ecosystem, it's public domain and open source. There are no gotchas, there's no special terms and conditions, right? I think as an enterprise, if you want to be a participant in the Ethereum ecosystem, you need to earn the credibility and the trust of the other ecosystem members. I just want to add sort of one comment on the community side, which is just generally, large companies are not great community members, if we're going to be honest. Companies formed consortia during like the boom years of the private blockchain business. They all failed because the companies spent all their time trying to figure out how to architect the system in a way that was maximally beneficial for themselves instead of just going and building something. So I think enterprises, however they approach it, they need to rethink that path, and they need to think more about earning the right to participate in a community ecosystem by making unselfish contributions as a way to start that process.
I love the idea of an unselfish contribution to kick off a wider open source collaboration. All right, my dear audience, we made complicated things simple, so I want to ask for a round of applause for our amazing panelists, David, Sofiane, Paul. Thank you so much for a great discussion, and enjoy the rest of the conference. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for your attention.